The Black Patriarchy. A non-existent group of fictional black male power brokers not discredited, erroneously jailed or outright killed by the minority majority who look the other way as they work tirelessly to shame, oppress, and outright take out the altruistic black female populace of the honorable democratic United States of America. 3K's inset bitches. These evil wealthy members of the black patriarchy are the sole reason for all the ills of the black community, walking, talking, holding down jobs, and doing everything up to and including giving their very lives in service to their baby mamas and baby's motherfucking kids. Their motto that strikes fear into the hearts of black women everywhere: bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks.
So this is how I knew that my relationship with my husband was over. First, I feel like women, we break up mentally with a person. Before, the court papers are filed, we mentally break up with the person. And so I mentally broke up with my husband. I went to God, I told him, you know what? I do not want to be in this relationship anymore. It just takes me back to the song of R. Kelly. When a woman's fed up, it ain't nothing you can do about it, because my mind was already made up and I was at the point where I was ready to go. The day I knew I was fed up with my husband was a day I was with someone else intimately. I knew that it was over when I was in Mexico because told me not to fucking talk to him. He told me not to talk to him while I was on the trip with him. And I'm like, wow, like I'm really on this vacation with my husband in Mexico, the most beautiful place ever, and I can't talk to my husband. That means that there's no intimacy going on. That means ain't no touching, no hugging, no anything. This man put a pillow in between us. And at that point, I knew I deserved better. I knew that I gave him so many chances, more chances than what he needed, more chances that I had given anyone else. I knew that I had let him slide, even though the first week when we were talking, I should have cut him loose, but I kept him. And so I knew at that moment it was partially my fault that I was in this miserable relationship. And when I say miserable, I mean a relationship that doesn't include intimacy and love, which is very important in a relationship. Just to have that affection and that close intimacy with a person. So when we was in Mexico, he told me not to touch him. I'm like, okay, cool. This man treated me like shit for 5 fucking days. He treated me like fucking shit. When I tell you he treated me like I wasn't worth anything, treating me like shit, okay? Like I was going to the bars, drinking by myself. He treated me like shit. And so I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So on the 6th night of the vacation, I was on my way back to the hotel room by myself in Mexico. On my way back to the hotel room, and long and behold, there was this fine, beautiful black man. There was this fine and beautiful black man. I swear, I thought like God himself had sent me this guy. I'm like, oh my God, he's tall, fine, beautiful, beautiful teeth, smell good. Like I was like sitting in the back of him, I can just smell like the cologne, like just coming my way. Nice watch, nice shoes. I was like, you know what? I think this is a sign. There's gotta be a sign, This man was tall. He was about, like 4 of my husbands put together. I'm like, there's gotta be a sign, because God told me he was gonna double it. But anyways, so I started talking to this guy, and he had some nice conversation in the first, couple of minutes. As I'm smelling his cologne, it was some very good conversation. And so at that moment, I decided, you know what, fuck this. You are overdue on fucking intimacy, love, and everything else. Fuck it, because at this point, I was done with my husband. Didn't care what the fuck people thought about me. Didn't give 0 fucks whatsoever. And so, you know what? I hung out with this tall, beautiful black man, and I had the best time of my life. And I swear, like, when I was with him, for me, it just I felt like I freed myself. I felt like I was trapped somewhere. And I know that, mentally you're trapped, but sometimes some good sex can bring you out of that shit and fucking wake you the fuck up. Like, wake the fuck up. And that was a moment where I woke the fuck up, and I knew that I deserve love, I deserve affection, I deserve good intellectual conversation, I deserve a man that fucking smells good, no salt taste. I deserve it the fuck all. And that's when I cheated on my narcissistic husband. Did I tell my husband that I cheated? I am a very honest female, and for me in a relationship, honesty is very important to me. So I always tell my husband, if I cheat on you, I'm gonna tell you. That's how I feel like a married couple should be. It should be honesty. And so when I came back from this big, beautiful black man, I'm telling you, we walked on the beach with our toes. I can still remember my toes in the sand, the coat, everything I wanted to do in Mexico that week. I did it in one night with this man. And so that morning, because I didn't get back to morning, because at that point I gave zero fucks what anybody, including my ex, had to say about me. He was my ex-husband at this point. So I came back to the room, and of course this fuck boy is doing some fuck shit. He locked the hotel door, like he bolted the fucking locks, right? So I'm knocking on the door, banging on the door, and I'm just fucking happy at this point. It just felt like I just got a happy shot. When I went to Mexico, I was low. This was my first time fucking since I was 35 years old, so I felt great at this point. At this point, I walk inside the hotel room, and my ex, he couldn't tell me shit. He couldn't tell me not a thing. And I'm like, you know what? I cheated on you. And I told him everything. He said he didn't care. I'm like, cool. Self-care is very important in a relationship. After all is said and done, I can go back, I can laugh about, how I screwed this random fine-ass man on a vacation with my husband there. It sounds pretty fucked up, but it made me evaluate myself. I was at a point in my life where I was that low that I slept with someone else. And for me, that wasn't my typical behavior. I'm 35 years old. I never did a one-night stand. And so for me, I realized how low I was and how empty I was, and the importance of me doing that self-care work, and the importance of me evaluating everything around me. I had to evaluate my current relationship with my ex-husband, my relationship with my kids, my friends, my job, and how I was spending my time, and why I was in a place where I was this low. So yeah, self-care was very important to me following that.
And now, for the moment all you motherfuckers been waiting for. All my flip mode niggas rise and await for the most powerful event to occur. The coming!
Can you imagine the unfathomable cruelty it took to post this story online? This woman talks of strife with her husband of about 4 years, insinuating that things came to a head during a vacation to Mexico, culminating in her cheating on him with a rando she encountered during a bar crawl. Before this chronologically occurs, this woman details an ongoing heated exchange in which her aggrieved husband verbally tells her not to touch him, and goes so far as to place a pillow between them in bed. She also infers the husband ignored and treated her badly, refusing to be seen in public with her. What is left unsaid is the reason for the treatment, with the unidentified husband plastered with the bland generic tag of narcissist. Scanning. The CLAPBACK 9000 computes this woman is a sociopath. What is the textbook definition of a sociopath, you might ask? Antisocial personality disorder, sometimes called sociopathy, is a mental health condition in which a person consistently shows no regard for right and wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. I repeat, can you imagine the unfathomable cruelty it took to post this story online? We are talking about an adult male reportedly so distressed that he verbally indicates to his wife that he does not want tactile contact with her of any kind, and goes so far as to place a physical object between them when they are in bed together. Suffice it to say, it seems the idea of fucking his wife of a stated 4+ years on their Mexican vacation is out of the question. What is being left out of the setup to the story this woman is regaling her audience of mouth breathers with? From her recount of the incident, the Clapback 9000 computes the husband was disgusted by her, or perhaps something she did prior to that Mexican vacation. Scanning. The average price of a 7-day trip to Mexico is $997 for a solo traveler, $1,571 for a couple. If the marriage was in jeopardy theoretically before this vacation began, considering the reported mental disposition of the woman's husband, why take it in the first place? Computing. The Clapback 9000 computes an unreported detail in the related story. Conventional logic and common sense indicates the strife began during transit to the vacation location. The same logic takes into account the missing detail. Explanation, which also logically places the wife as the instigator cause of the extreme marital distress and reason for her husband's excessively emotional behavior. This woman is lying by omission, and that puts her dead center at the heart of the discord and strife. Consider her alleged testimony about the supposed narcissist husband's treatment of her during the vacation, and how it is presented in a faux sympathetic tone, emotional music cues with all the bells and whistles. Her reported behavior doesn't indicate a woman devastated by the deterioration of her marriage, or even show concern for her husband's mental state. Logic plainly indicates a motive to soldier on with the vacation, despite the extreme discord with this man she was sharing a hotel room with. Also consider the language used in her recount of the unfolding events. This woman speaks only of herself in moires of exclusion that indicate her perception of herself as a singular entity instead of talking about the marriage in inclusive terms. Her narrative makes it clear that she views the husband as a lesser being undeserving of all the supposed chances she'd given him, also mentioning that she rewarded him more than anyone else. A good ear on this narrative posits this woman was looking at her husband of 4+ years with an outsider's perspective. She talks in a manner that indicates she thought lesser of him from the inception of their relationship, possibly even pre-marriage. She says the first week they were talking she should have cut him loose, but she kept him. This is a red flag. Her statement indicates that she was doing this man a favor by giving him a chance to be in her circle. Red flag. The woman talks of the lack of intimacy and love in the marital relationship from an outsider's point of view, despite the sympathetic music queued up to elicit a subtle connection with her target audience. How could anyone endure 5 alleged days of this alleged strife without acting like a responsible adult and addressing it? The victim card is in full effect, as it appears she wants viewers to think her fucking ass was hanging on the goddamn cross all the while, making sure to continue on with her vacation despite the angry man left behind. Out of sight, out of mind. Going to bars and drinking by herself. Seems she was going to enjoy herself whether this man participated or not. His emotional state be damned, because she can't be bothered with anything outside of her bubble. Least of all her husband. Decorum and the incessant usage of a victim narrative prompts the Clapback 9000 to remind the audience this woman is a malignant sociopath, better yet a malignant narcissist herself. And just so you know, malignant narcissism is a psychological disorder in which a person has an inflated sense of self-worth, a need for admiration, and a disregard for others. They experience paranoia, feeling threatened or persecuted without proof, and are aggressive, manipulative, and abusive without remorse. This woman uses biblical-sounding rhetoric and self-aggrandizement to soften her horrific behavioral abuse of her husband, but gives herself away as she recounts going outside of the marriage during a time of great despair and existential grief for her husband, laughing, chortling, and snickering all the while. Her descriptions of the rando she eventually hooks up with lets the audience know that this convenient individual fits her desired preference. She even goes so far as to say the unidentified owner of the BBC she sat on in defiance of her marital vows is equal to 4 of her husband. It is unclear if she is speaking about a whole man or his equipment, as she behaves like a horny teenaged boy. Even then, this woman views her rando in the same sexual and objective lens, making sexist comments about his body and noting brand name items of clothing the rando is wearing. Can you imagine the unfathomable cruelty it took to post this story online? Her justification for cheating, citing God in tandem with what she describes as a running internal monologue, discounting the ramifications of stepping outside of the marriage, is cringeworthy. This woman told herself in that internal diatribe that she was done with her husband and didn't care what anyone thought of her. The only problem is the husband didn't get the memo beforehand. If things were truly over, wouldn't it have sufficed to send a simple message to that effect? This woman's narcissism wouldn't allow her to show her long-suffering husband an ounce of decency. Can you imagine the unfathomable cruelty it took to post this story online? The second, even more cringe-worthy moment comes when she uses what can only be described as a fake-ass New Age-sounding ideology to rug-sweep her disgusting behavior. The only thing her myopic field of thought and understand is her own selfish wants and needs to the exclusion of all else. Nothing matters but what she wants, and that God she likes to use as a shield be damned. The audience at this point is regaled with the vague details of her getting ran through by this unidentified rando, and how much she enjoyed it as sort of a cord-cutting ritual from her emotionally abandoned and abused husband. The lack of accountability is unreal even for a computer program by a motherfucking misogynist anarchist. Get this, she stays out all night getting ran through by some rando BBC, probably without a condom, comes back in the morning totally rotted out and gets mad because her husband locked her out of the room. Seriously, this woman refers to the husband as a fuckboy for locking her out in what was clearly the only thing he could do after being utterly emasculated before, during, and after this Mexican vacation that she clearly didn't pay for not one dime. And it should be noted that after beating on said hotel room door, until the cuckolded husband was obliged to open it, this woman regaled him with a blow-by-blow account of getting her cheeks clapped after disappearing for hours. The audience is told repeatedly that she had checked out of the marriage internally, but the husband didn't get the memo. Legally married, a literal contract with potentially severe financial consequences if he steps outside of it. Reminder: at no time did this trap thought verbally indicate that she paid any money into the Mexican vacation, but she obviously made the most of it regardless and says S in the video. This posits the husband is likely the sole breadwinner and provider in their scam household. This is Greek tragedy, and this hoe rug sweeps the one-night stand as self-care. Can you imagine the unfathomable cruelty it took to post this story online? Kings, this has been a cautionary tale and reaction video to demonstrate why you do not throw pearls before swine. The husband is not a simp. He is a victim that was caught between a rock and a hard place in a foreign country with a monster in his marital bed. And before I go, Denise, you are a short, squat, tired-looking, stank-ass motherfucking trash bag hoe with a ratty, busted cooch. Well, thank God you don't take thins like this personal, huh, ho? Don't forget to hit that free clinic on the way to divorce court, biatch. This has been your clapback from the Clapback 9000 and DA motherfucking Geek Underground.
This message has been paid for by the Dusties. Yes, the niggas you love to hate.